So I was walking around the Columbia campus. I was about 22 years old. And I'm thinking, I'm going out of my mind here. I'm learning nonsense. But very bright people are teaching me drivel. And I just, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And then a verse from the Bible, which I had recited last in daily prayers in my Jewish religious school called yeshiva that I went to when I was a kid and through high school. But I last said it in first grade, and it came to my brain in Hebrew, out of nowhere. That's why I call it an epiphany. And it is, wisdom begins with fear of God. And then I realized, oh, that's why there's no wisdom at Columbia. There's no God at Columbia. And that has stayed with me. The secular world produces knowledge and no wisdom.
Dennis Prager, really excellent to have you on American Thought Leaders.
My pleasure to be here.
So Dennis, you star with Adam Carolla in this new film, No Safe Spaces. There's so many things I want to talk to you about with respect to this. I want to interview every character in the film, I think.
Everyone would be interesting.
Typically we think of things in terms of the left-leaning and right-leaning, or liberal and conservative, but you're basically saying in the film there's actually three groups. There's liberal,
correct.
There's conservative, but then there's also the leftists.
That's right.
And what distinguishes the
left?
Well,
I have a video up at PragerU with 6 examples, and I've also written it out as one of my columns, so people can easily find it. But I'll give you a couple immediately that people will resonate to. Liberals believe in racial integration, and leftists believe in racial segregation. That's why so many campuses have an all-black dorm. An all-black dorm is supported by the Ku Klux Klan and the left. No liberals, no conservatives support that. Harvard has black graduation commencement exercises. Black graduation exercises? Are you kidding? But Harvard, like every other institution, is left-wing, not liberal. Liberals, I grew up a liberal Jew in New York, which is almost redundant. Jews are liberals. So this is so offensive to my liberal values, a black graduation. One other example is that liberals were the vanguard of support for Israel. Since Israel was founded in 1948, the left has always hated Israel and the Jews, and there's no difference today. And the left is taking over the Democratic Party, which was once liberal and is now leftist, and that's that is the reason for its hostility to Israel. So those are 2 examples.
No.
Okay, you want a third? I'm not kidding.
Okay.
Because people need to know the difference. Capitalism. Liberalism was always supportive of capitalism, and leftism always hated capitalism. Left, of course, is totalitarian. All leftism everywhere has a totalitarian temptation. The only thing that stops the left in America from being totalitarian is that they don't have full power. But wherever they have full power, they're totalitarian. The college campus is the most obvious example. There is less free speech on a college campus than in the plumbers union. It's just a fact. And so that is because they control it. So, you just can't say, and if you say certain things, look, in America today, people are terribly afraid to say they support President Trump. This is a first, not just in my lifetime, this is a first in American history where you are afraid to say you voted for one of 2 candidates for president. But in the United States today, I conduct, my avocation, so to speak, is conducting orchestras. I'm very involved in classical music. So, and the movie ends with my conducting at the Disney concert hall.
Despite an attempt to...
That's right. Oh, there was a huge attempt. Yeah. There was a huge attempt to close that down. I conducted the Santa Monica Symphony Orchestra. Mm-hmm. Santa Monica is a very left-wing city. It's not liberal, it's left-wing, and I'm conservative. So 7 of the 70 members of the orchestra refused to play for me. But the mayor and former mayor announced, you can't play, do not go, you in Santa Monica, don't even go to that concert. I didn't take a penny for this, I raised the entire budget for the year for that orchestra. This conservative, for this left-wing city's orchestra, But they so hate conservatives and so want to control what people see that they said it is better not to raise the funds for our orchestra. This is the former mayor of Santa Monica, than to go and hear it conducted by a conservative. I mean, this is their thinking. We will destroy if we do not have full control.
Right, but in the end, it seems like it was
well. In the end, I mean, it was the only regional orchestra to ever sell out the Disney Concert Hall. It was a total success. People were thrilled that they had gone that evening.
Academia wasn't always like this. You know, you talk about this characteristic, this situation exists in many areas in American society today. I think you argue that academia, it's probably the most serious or the most pernicious. How did it get to that today?
There are many reasons. The secular intellectual, in most instances, is an idiot, is a moral idiot, is a fool. The only people to support Stalin in the West were intellectuals. Hard hats knew the guy was a mass murderer. You had to have a college degree or a graduate degree to think Stalin was a good man. The record of the secular intellectual is pathetic. Pathetic. The moral record. They're almost always wrong. There are always exceptions, of course, and they're honorable and terrific and wonderful, but as a rule, they're fools. They don't know the difference between good and evil. That's how foolish they are. And when I was at Columbia, that was where I went to graduate school, School of International Affairs. Mm-hmm. And that's where I studied Russian and Arabic and Hebrew, and because I was in the Middle East and Soviet studies. And I was stunned at the idiocies. I was taught then men and women are basically the same. I was taught the Soviet Union and the United States were equally responsible for the Cold War. Truman was a moral equivalent to Stalin when I went to Columbia. This is not new. It's gotten worse, but it's not new. So I remember this was a turning point in my life. I've had one epiphany in my whole life. Not theophany, God has never appeared to me. Please. I want to make that clear, but this was an epiphany.
Okay.
It was sort of like the clouds parted and a ray of truth of unbelievable importance hit me. So I was walking around the Columbia campus. I was about 22 years old. And I'm thinking, I'm going out of my mind here. I'm learning nonsense. But very bright people are teaching me drivel. And I just, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And then a verse from the Bible, which I had recited last in daily prayers in my Jewish religious school called Yeshiva that I went to when I was a kid and through high school. But I last said it in first grade, and it came to my brain in Hebrew out of nowhere. That's why I call it an epiphany.
Okay.
And it is, wisdom begins with fear of God. And then I realized, oh, that's why there's no wisdom at Columbia. There's no God at Columbia. And that has stayed with me. The secular world produces knowledge and no wisdom. That's why the universities are so stupid.
There's two things that just come to mind at once for me. One of them is, I think it's Jordan Peterson in the film, says something along the lines of, there's actually whole disciplines in universities that are not producing learned people. They're producing activists for further leftism or something to this effect.
Right, yes.
I found this to be of course I know this to some extent, but I found this to be one of the most disturbing things in the film. It hit me hard.
That's exactly correct.
Which disciplines are we talking about?
All of the non-sciences and non-math, all of them. English, gender studies, women's studies, black studies, history, political science, they're wastelands. They're just wastelands. Some are worse than others. I mean, gender studies is actually purely destructive. But women's studies a close second. They're cheerleaders. That's what they are. They're cheerleaders. They ironically, they teach you to hate. If you get a degree in women's studies, you're really getting a degree in men are despicable studies.
This is basically replicated across the humanities
I
now.
know
That's
of
what
no
you're saying?
exceptions. That's correct. But again, English departments are terrible. It doesn't have to be women's studies or gender studies. The departments of English, you can get a BA at UCLA, you can get a bachelor's in English and never read a Shakespeare play. After all, he's a white male. They took down Shakespeare's mural at the Department of English at the University of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Because he was a dead white European male. But he wasn't up there because he was a dead white European male. He was up there because he wrote the greatest English literature in the history of English literature. So now there's a black lesbian poet up there. Latinx.
So basically, but based on group affiliation, not based on quality
That's exactly
of the work.
Right. That's why they're racist. The left is racist. They care about your blood and your pigment much more than we do. We don't give a damn. We only give a damn if you write well.
Well, something that struck me about the film, especially, you're basically, it's a conversation to some extent between you and Adam Carolla. The goal seems to me to be try to, make it a kind of a bipartisan effort or an interest kind of across the aisle, not purely conservatives, which has been more your focus. How has that been received?
Well, it's a little early. I could only tell you that one reviewer that I read it on my radio show today said it was one of the most important films of the modern period. I think it is. And I say it all the time, and I'm not Mr. Humble. It's not great because I'm in it, but I'm in a great film. It's a big difference. It is a great film. The guys who did it made a great film. I'm honored to be in it, but it's not great because I'm in it. If I attract people because of my name, that's great. But the message is far larger than me, and the excellence is not my excellence. It is riveting, and the number of non-conservatives who are frightened by the suppression of free speech actually impressed me.
So yeah, that's actually quite interesting, because you don't, if you're in conservative circles and so forth, you often don't think about that aspect so much.
To be perfectly honest, I was surprised Van Jones was as negative about what universities are doing as he was. And I'm thrilled. I mean, the more allies we have on the battle, I don't expect to agree with people on everything, but if we can't agree on free speech, we agree on nothing.
One of the rays of hope in all this, again, when we were describing this sort of, infiltration, so to speak, of the left, of all these disciplines, right? Some of which are kind of supposed to be foundational disciplines of learning, right? English and humanities. It feels very difficult. How do we get out of this, right? But you actually offer a bit of a ray of hope here, right? And you mentioned this earlier when we were speaking courage.
Oh, well, courage, as I have said much of my life, there are many nice and good qualities. Honesty, integrity, kindness, compassion, but they're all useless without courage. There are a lot of nice Germans, but there are very few courageous ones. But unfortunately, when God gave out qualities, courage had the shortest line. Narcissism had a much longer line.
Right. But you're encouraged, I think in the film, you and Adam and others are encouraging people as something to kind of, counter this whole, I guess, leftist movement against free speech, to actually just
you
speak,
have to
right?
Fight. Well, there are many ways.
Yeah.
Well, look, regarding the university, if you give money to a university, I could say categorically you would have done much better to burn it, because then it isn't hurting anybody. You've just wasted $1 million. But if you give to a university, you're not wasting $1 million. You are actually using your $1 million to hurt civilization. I have no joy in saying that. I'm an intellectual. I love writing. I love reading. I love the world of ideas. I love the world of the mind. But they're worse than wastelands. If you learn nothing, I would have no problem with the university. But they teach you, you come out with contempt for the founders of the United States. You come out with contempt for America. You come out believing that black or white is important. Race is not important. Race is completely unimportant. Character is everything. Race is nothing. Nothing. To say race is nothing is considered at the University of California to be racist. I'll give you an example. Look this up. It's on the internet. Microaggressions University of California. People should Google it.
Okay.
Okay? And they will come up with an official listing from the University of California to all its campuses of things people say that are racist. Here's an example. There is only one race, the human race. That is considered racist at the University of California. It's a sick place, the university. It's sick. It's morally sick. America and Israel are the great villains. Two of the finest societies ever made are the great villains at the university. And so if you give money there, you've wasted, you've done harm with your money. If you, I just tell people, they say, well, should I not send my kid to college? My answer is, unless it's STEM, there is no reason to. Science, technology, engineering, math. I don't see any reason to go otherwise. Now, if you have faith that your kid will hold rational and moral values intact, I couldn't care less. You know, it's fun to go there. You can get to party. You hope your kid drinks for 4 years so that they're inebriated through every class session. That way they don't get it influenced. Obviously, that's just dark humor. But when you send your kid to college, you are playing Russian roulette with their values.
For the typical person out there, and there's many of them, as you said, there's probably a lot more that don't think of themselves as conservative, that are deeply concerned about this. And by the way, actually, what do we call this? Is this like political correctness?
Political correctness is way too mild a term. There's no such thing today as higher education. There's higher indoctrination. That's what they get, is indoctrination. As I've often said, there's only one difference, aside from content, between a Christian seminary and a university. The Christian seminary is honest. The university is not. The Christian seminary announces its goal to produce committed Christians. The university does not admit its goal to produce committed leftists. That's the difference. The seminary is honest.
There's something that you said, which also I found incredibly powerful. I think it's you that says this, I hope I'm right, but it's that liberty is a value, not a natural inclination.
Yes, that's right.
Right? Wow, that's very interesting.
Very interesting and very important. People yearn to be taken care of, not to be free. Freedom is a learned value, not a human instinct. The human instinct is to be taken care of. That's the reason the left wins. Why do they win in Latin America? They have ruined Latin America through the entire 20th century. In Mexico, country got increasingly corrupt after 60 years, I think it is, of PRI rule. But they kept electing them because they promised them more benefits. The only difference between any Democrat running for president is that the amount of money they will give you if they win. There's no other difference. So that's people want to be taken care of. I don't. It's a nightmare to me that the government or someone else will take care of me. That is my worst nightmare. I'd rather die than be taken care of. No, it's humiliating to me to be taken care of. I want to take care of me. I want to take care of my family. I want to take care of my community. That was the American ideal. You take care of you. You take care of your community. You take care of your family. You take care of your community. The left-wing ideal is the government takes care of you. The government takes care of your family. The government takes care of your community. That's the idea, and people love it. And why do people come from Latin America vote Democrat? There are a lot of these who are wonderful people, by the way. And I always tell people, it's why I don't agree with the president on if I were the president, but he's done a great job, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying rhetorically, I just don't agree with him. The vast majority of people crossing the border are terrific people. They have left-wing values, but they're terrific people. Just like in Minnesota. Minnesota nice. That's the statement of Minnesotans, that they're just nice. Mm-hmm. But they elect Al Frankens and A.B. Klobuchars and other left-wingers because they have left-wing values. They're a sweet, in other words, nice people can ruin countries, whether they're American or Latin American. People confuse niceness with wisdom. They have nothing to do with one another. There are nice people with no wisdom. They're called leftists. Now, some leftists are not nice at all. Many leftists are just simply cruel and utterly destructive. But there are some nice people, I acknowledge it. And by the way, there's some conservatives who are not nice. But I don't judge people alone. Everyone is two people, micro and macro.
Okay.
They're two separate people. There were slave owners who were very nice people, but they had a despicable belief called slavery. But otherwise, they were kind and honest and loved their family and loved their friends, maybe even treated their slaves nicely. But they believed in slavery. That's a horrible belief. Leftism is a horrible belief. It is civilization destructive. But there are a lot of nice people who have it. And Americans vote on niceness. It's very sad.
So Dennis, let's go back to our solution set, or part of it, I think you argue, and many things I've seen of you, is a strong moral education at the outset. But if many people don't believe in that, or based in belief in God or belief in the divine, but many people don't believe that today.
They believe in moral education, but it's their morality.
Right.
They strongly do. In Italy, they just passed a law that every child from elementary school must study about climate change. It's a beautiful thing. Now all Italian children can believe that they have no future. As I say, the left tells listen, I've written on this, people could look it up. The left tells American children, your future is terrible and your past is terrible. There are leftists who are nice, but there are no leftists who are happy. There are happy liberals, happy conservatives. I've written a book on happiness. I've spoken on happiness on 7 continents. I'm a happiness maven. I've studied happiness my whole life. It's a very important trait. And the unhappy make the world worse. That's one of my beliefs about life.
Okay.
Happiness is a moral issue. There are no happy leftists, and they want the rest of the world to be as unhappy as they are.
So, homeschooling.
Homeschooling is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Pull your kid out of school. That is exactly right. And try not. I'll tell you this. I really do believe this. I know I'll be laughed at, but it means nothing to me. I went on Bill Maher's show and 400 people laughed at me all night. It has no effect on me. But I do believe that if your child, your college-age kid, watched every one of the PragerU videos a few times, did the readings, they would come out so much better informed and wiser than if they went to any college. There is no comparison.
Well,
and it's free.
Right. Well, I can tell you, we've actually, we use some of your videos on our website, on the Epic Times as well. We appreciate them immensely.
Yes, thank you.
Would you consider saying something to our readers?
Well, I'd happily say to your Epic Times readers that I'm one of your fellow readers. I read the print edition. Just, I told you that before you said anything to me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think you're doing a valuable service.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. But so, if there's one message that you want folks to get across from after watching No Safe Spaces, what is that?
For the first time in American history, free speech is threatened. This has never happened before. Not in the Civil War, never. Never. There's the only thing Americans all agreed on. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll fight for your right to say it. This was as American as they used to say as apple pie. But, well, actually, they used to say as American as motherhood and apple pie. Motherhood is no longer all that American, unfortunately, and apple pie is filled with carbs. So can't use that saying anymore. But that was the belief. That was the one given. We all agree in free speech. The left has never believed in freedom, never, of speech or anything else. Liberals do, conservatives do, the left has never. That's why the left named its newspaper in the Soviet Union Pravda, which means truth. Because there is no objective truth. There's communist truth. There's leftist truth. I mean, as I said on Bill Maher's show, you know, the left now tells us that men menstruate. And if you say men do not menstruate, you're considered a hater. Not a truth teller, a hater.
So you're basically saying it just in black is white, white is black, or truth
That is
stops having
correct.
meaning.
It has no meaning. Truth is not a left-wing value. That doesn't mean every leftist lies. It means exactly what I'm saying. Leftism does not hold truth to be a value. It holds defeating the right as a value.
If people were to go see the film, what is it that you think they can learn that they didn't know before?
It'll awaken them to how serious the issue is in an entertaining and utterly informative way. It's a very rare combination of I will laugh and cry. You will do both.
Dennis Prager, such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, my pleasure.